Hello, welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. So make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, as always, send questions and comments to the Facebook page, YouTube page. Love seeing you all chat live every week, and some of your chats may even make it on the air. So, as always, if you can't catch us live, you can always catch the replays on Facebook and YouTube along with the chat. So, if you're a podcast junkie, also listen in your car. You know me, my name is John Rourke. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. Next up for his introduction, because he can't wait to get on air, Jason Richards. How you doing, Jason?
I'm good, John. How are
Oh,
you?
there you are. There you are. I'm great now that you're finally gracing us with your presence.
Yes. Hey, everybody. My name's Jason Richards. I'm a past master of Vacation Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, member of the Colonial Lodge number 1821 in Washington, D.C., and also a member of Lafayette Lodge number 79. Rush Chairman. Darn glad to meet you.
Oh my gosh, I hate you so much. Robert Johnson, how you doing tonight?
I didn't expect you to come to me next, so I'm like,
cut hard.
I'm doing well. Very good to be with all of you this evening. A really cool show, and man, I love these layout players. You guys are hilarious. Yeah, y'all know me, man. Next.
Good. Next. Joe, how's it going? Good seeing you.
Oh, I didn't see you there. Joe Martinez. Let's see, what am I this week?
Drinking from your chalice.
My Masonic goblet that I got for my birthday from the Babs. Yeah. Plus 10 points for Babs.
Good call.
And I'm doing well. Joe Martinez, Pisces. I like the beach. All that good stuff.
Wonderful, wonderful. And special guest for tonight, returning co-host, Chad Kopenski. How's it going?
Excellent.
Try that again?
Everybody here? Anyway, Joe, when was your birthday? It was last week, right?
March 20th. Yeah.
25th. So, like, I'm just after you. So that puts me what as Aries, Pisces.
I'm a cusp baby. I'm a Pisces Aries cusp. So we talked about this offline.
I think we did. So that means that we probably should not be necessarily together because I think that means that we'll either take over the world or take a nap. One of the two.
I can be around you on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but the other 4 days are a no-go.
Okay. Let me get my calendar. We'll get that working out. So we'll get that figured out. So, hi everybody.
It's great having you back.
It's an honor to be here. It's glad to be here. So, my name is Chad Kopenski. Eventually, I would like to see if I can get the title of friend of the show. I think that would be great if I could get whatever banner that would be to be an official friend of the show, or at least an acquaintance of the show.
Acquaintance.
Not a sponsor.
I am. Let's see. Past master of Premier Youth Lodge in Athens, Ohio. Past district deputy, past DEO in Ohio, past chairman of the Grand Lodge of Ohio Education Committee, but currently I'm here as the current sitting president of the Midwest Conference on Masonic Education. And it is an honor and a pleasure to be here. So,
and that's a good thing because that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So,
how fortuitous.
It's very fortuitous. All right, before we get into that, though, definitely want to give a shout out to all the patrons who support the show. You guys rock and keep this show going for many years to come. So thank you very much for your support. If you want to support the show, click on that little banner or type it in yourself and head over to patreon.com/Masonic Roundtable to join us backstage. Love to see you there.
How much coffee have you had today?
Not enough.
Very messy.
Yes. I blame Jason. Okay, so
I'm not doing anything. I am sitting here with my mouth shut.
Oh gosh, get your hands off.
Not messing with the stream.
I hate you so much. Moving on, let's go to the next topic, which is tarot card of the week. So, as I warned Brother Chad in advance, that since we're going to be talking about an upcoming Masonic conference, which we love to talk about, we're gonna see how it's going to go. So, tarot card of the week will be this is an experiment where we're talking about the grand experiment that is this new conference and how it's going to go. We don't know how it's going to go. I am using the Moonlight Tarot deck, gifted by one Joe Martinez. So thank you, Joe. That was a nice little addition. And the card will be. We're not doing reverse today. We're just going to do 9 of Pentacles. All right, look at that. So 9 of Pentacles, 9 of coins. Usually is a good thing, right? 9 is almost completion. 9 is we're almost there. 9 coins being the material world. Like there's a lot of logistics to get set up. You're almost there. You are admiring the fruits of your labor. You haven't harvested yet, but you're certainly in the middle of it and really appreciating it for what it is. So that's a good thing.
Yeah,
it is. But now I have this fear, like you're just telling me what I want to hear, or you're just trying to like make sure that I, don't vibrate and out of pure like nerves and
I'm finding the tarot card or the tower card as soon as I can.
It's a really great card, Chad,
It
for the conference.
All right, I'll take it.
It's I think one of the most interesting things associated with this card is the idea of luxury. So, I mean, maybe the conference center is going to be so tight and it's going to be way better. How much did we pay per carafe of coffee in 2018? It was ridiculous. It better be better.
It was ridiculous. It was insane. But we had to pay for that.
I don't even know. Don't even bring it up. It's terrible.
Right. But I got to tell you, like where we're holding it this year, it's in Canton, the Canton Masonic Temple. The person who's been our point person for that, it's a guy named Eric Mullenbein. And pretty much I just kind of called him and said, and he's just sort of backed up the truck of support. I mean, pretty much anything we've needed, it's just been there. Nice. Caterers, rooms. I mean, it's just been hotels, transportation. It's been delightful.
Well, good. Well, let's start at the top then. Now let's get right into the good stuff. Okay. What is the Midwest Conference of Masonic Education?
Midwest Conference on Masonic Education is a national conference held yearly for educators, Masonic educators, to gather in order to talk about best practices, to look at common issues, to discover those individual solutions that might be there. But basically, it really is an opportunity for these people to get into a room and just make those meaningful connections that are so vital in education. Masonic education, as we all know, it thrives in connection and dies in isolation. And one of the dangers we have in Masonic education is that we get into these bubbles. We just assume that everybody does things the same way, or that we all have, the same problems, or that we all, we just assume that everything is the same as it is in our location. But the more that we talk to others, the more that we connect, the more we find out there's just some really amazing things that are going on out there at the local level, at the district level, at the state level. And again, the more you talk, the more you connect, the more that you get outside your bubble, the better the Masonic education is, because you find these ideas that are tested. You find these ideas that you would never think of in a million years, but all of a sudden you see somebody else doing it and it just sparks something. That's the benefit of this conference, is getting people in this room and letting them connect and discuss. Yes, Joe. Sorry.
Question for Mr.
Yes.
Kopenski. Yes. So I've been on the website quite a few times, never have been blessed to go to the conference. I need to find some free time to do that, but it sounds awesome. Number one, because it's more than one jurisdiction. It's the Midwest Conference, right? So, and I'll let you talk about that in a second, but the thing I keep seeing popping up is it's been around since 1949. So what have y'all been doing for 70 plus years?
Oh, Lordy. So if you ever would like to go down a really nice rabbit hole, I'll get you the proceedings from the last, however many years that is. This is going to be somewhat of a long walk, but I'll try to make it as quickly as possible. The definition of Masonic education has absolutely changed over the last 70, 80 years of this conference. And when the conference first started, it really was more along the lines of, it was more ritual based. The idea of we need to have Masonic education that is centered around explaining the ritual, explaining the symbolism, and throughout the course of the history of this conference, painting with a broad brush, obviously, different jurisdictions realized that there were things that were not happening in lodges. They made a lot of assumptions about what brethren were doing and what lodges were doing. And once they realized that these things weren't happening, they all of a sudden put them under the umbrella of education. It's, what? We're not doing leadership? Education is now leadership. We need to do leadership training and leadership programs. What? We're not actually doing candidate counseling? Well, that's now education. So now let's do education programs and education candidate counseling. What? We're not doing anything about membership? We need to do and so that's happened at the Grand Lodge level. With the conference, what has sort of happened is that the movers and shakers, the guys at the table, for lack of a better word, they came to that conference with the directives from their Grand Lodges saying, listen, guys, I need to do something about leadership. Oh, wait, Missouri, you've got something. Wisconsin, you've got something. Michigan, Ohio, what? And then all of a sudden, that was the benefit of the conference, was that as these directives came down from Grand Lodge, the guys at the table came and swapped these ideas, which in some ways sort of changed the definition of education across the country. Because if all of a sudden Ohio is saying, well, we need an education program on leadership, we need something. Oh, wait, Missouri has the TEL program. Well, we're going to take that, repackage it, and now we're going to send that out. And of course, Kentucky takes it, and then West Virginia, and then it has really been this kind of clearinghouse for it has been the clearinghouse for these educational ideas and educational initiatives. It has also been largely responsive up until probably about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, as opposed to prescriptive. And I think there's been a shift in the last couple of years for us as a conference to be more prescriptive. This is what education can be, or could be, or should be.
What do you mean by prescriptive then?
That's what I mean. That
give me some examples. Yeah.
That education should not necessarily be limited to just one thing necessarily. That education serves a role in the Grand Lodge, system, but that a lot of times Grand Lodges think of education from like a monolithic standpoint, that kind of top-down direction. And that what we are finding, and kind of what we are advocating, for lack of a better word, is that the best educational programs tend to come from the bottom up. And so that we need to sort of, as a fraternity, we need to sort of rethink what education is. We need to rethink the role of education in the lodges. It shouldn't be an afterthought. And it shouldn't necessarily be around just to solve a problem. Meaning, what, guys, we don't know leadership? We need a leadership program.
Right.
Oh, hold on, that's part of it. But there needs to be more to it.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of segues really nicely into a question that you mentioned it a couple of times. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask.
Right on.
What is the general, and I don't need your personal opinion if you don't want to get in trouble, but feel free to give it. What is your thought on what education is and what education isn't? Because to your point, I think a lot of us have noticed, and we all have different answers, right, on what we think education is. We tend to agree a lot of times, especially when we're live, but in certain cases we don't. But everybody thinks that education is something different. If you ask 10 different people, you'll get 10 different answers. And you touched on a couple ones: membership and leadership and stuff like that.
You just triggered Chad.
Well, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm here to do that. But
no, this was so this is what
yeah.
The reason why I'm hedging my bet here is because this is also one that could be a potentially long story, and I'm trying to get it down to about 30 seconds in my head. My belief about education is that, okay, it shouldn't be just one thing. It needs to be responsive to the needs of the brethren, meaning that if you are an education officer in a lodge, you need to know your brethren well enough to kind of know what it is that what speaks to them. Education also doesn't have to be just some guy standing up lecturing from the pillar of truth. It can be many different things. And my viewpoint in this has evolved over the years, partially because of my own kind of experience as a teacher and kind of rethinking of what the role of an educator is or could be, but also recognizing that when it comes to Masonic education, and this is where you and I probably could talk about this forever, because you and I both have that lovely sort of, I have a Jesuit background and you have a much more sort of religious, education background. When you start reading some of those authors who talk about that, they learned more about God sitting out in, a tree stand than they ever learned sitting in a cathedral or sitting in the synagogue.
Right.
That Masonic education can happen in ways that we didn't think of. That sometimes brethren working together to build benches for the local park, that could potentially be Masonic education properly framed. That there's an opportunity there, and that making it just one thing, making it just ritual, just an LEO getting up and reading the first 3 pages of an MSA booklet, does the lodge a disservice, does the brethren a disservice, and does the fraternity a disservice. Which is a long way of saying that, to me, Masonic education is almost any activity properly framed that gives brethren, it teaches them what our Masonic values are, what our Masonic tenets are, and teaches them how to incorporate them into their lives. And I think the most important 2 words there are properly framed. Then it becomes my role as a Masonic educator to provide that context and that framework. Does that help?
Interesting. Yeah. I like that. Because I know when I
Does
hear
that
the
mean-
word Masonic education, right, I'm a little bit more, I wouldn't say literal, but like if it's something that I could learn about outside of the lodge, then it's education, right? That's not Masonic education. And so for something to have that tie-in, I love your clause of properly framed, because to me that means something like, okay, I'm going to teach you about leadership that you could learn with tons of books and
Right, tons.
all that in podcasts and everything, but here's what it means to apply those principles in a Masonic context. I think that's what makes it Masonic education, the bolting on the reference point of Freemasonry. But I have seen many presentations where it's just, hey, we're going to learn about this history lesson, and at best they'll bring up that someone was a brother, but at worst has nothing to do with Freemasonry. And it's interesting, not Masonic, but interesting.
But I also think, again, sort of recontextualizing or re-envisioning the role of the Masonic educator. And this happens in, regular education all the time, for lack of a better word. It used to be that a teacher in front of the room, they were lecturing from the pillar of truth, right? I get up and I have the information, therefore I am going to spread my light to you out here in, out in the room. And I see the whatever comment, substance matters too. Absolutely. But this was vogue about 20, 30 years ago. There was this push in education to change the role of the educator to more of a guide, so that if, instead of me telling you what the important things were in this particular text or in this particular experience, that my goal as an educator was to provide the correct framework for education to happen, to let you get in there and play, to recognize where those educational opportunities were and to seize upon them, so that I was guiding you through the woods as opposed to telling you what the exact path was. I was
Yeah, I
more of
like-
a park ranger as opposed
Yeah,
to
I like
the,
that.
you know, you know.
In my consulting world, we call that the difference between a consultant and a coach. The
Right.
consultant tells you what to do. A coach says, you might want to consider these opportunities. You're still in charge. You're still going to make your own decisions. Based on what I've seen, you might have better success by doing this. Think of like a, a basketball coach, right? They're not on the court dribbling the basketball, but they can say, I recommend you shift your weight on this leg, and you may have better balance. And then it's up for the player to take that and run with it. So,
But there's two big issues with that mindset in masonry, truthfully, which is one, that's so much harder to do. It requires,
oh yeah,
if you're gonna have a Masonic coach, I mean,
100%.
that's and secondly, sometimes it's just not necessarily right. I mean, sometimes you do need somebody to come in and just lecture and say, this is what this is.
Correct.
This is how we do
There's
things.
times where
This is
you
how things
need
work.
the lecturer, you need the
Yep.
by the book ritual, you need the literal exoteric part of masonry.
It has to be deeper than just like specific examples of ritual, right? Like
Right.
when you said 20 to 30 years ago, this kind of switch over to the idea of a guide, this is kind of in line with I think we're starting to really dig in on this, which is the pitfall of this way of thinking. But there's this idea philosophically that everybody has like this individual truth, right? And so when you take this kind of idea and wrap it up as the guide, I think it does two things. One, it has the potential to make our guides completely lazy,
Mhm.
right? Like, because there's no need for the guide to do actually any work other than go, you're doing a good job, right? Or, so it has to, as you were saying, there has to be the right kind of person in that position. And number two is this idea of, I think, that you could say that there's a slippery slope to the idea of an individual truth within masonry or any other system. You could say that's a slippery slope, but I do think that we have seen a slippery slope in this area. You want to call it a logical fallacy, but it's almost not a fallacy, because in today's world, we do have an unfortunate situation that has unfolded with society and things about individual truths versus objective truths and things. So, to the point you started to make, which was that, yeah, there are you have to be on it and be able to tell people exactly what certain things mean when appropriate. And it doesn't always just apply to ritual. I think there is a prescribed meaning that you can teach confidently about dogma in masonry.
Well, and I think this may be a better way of kind of explaining the relationship, because we agree, but so I did martial arts for many years, right? And martial arts has these things called kata. They're forms, right? These are prescribed motions that in theory are supposed to teach you certain levels, certain concepts. The reason why these forms exist is because the guy who created them learned some great truth or great concept by doing those moves in that order. He gained enlightenment, for lack of a better word, by doing those things in that order. And so you learning that form is walking in his footsteps, which is nice and symbolic. But the person teaching you, they are trying to get those lessons into your head. You're trying to get you to master those moves like he did, but ultimately making you realize that you have to internalize and personalize those lessons that are in the form. Eventually, you have to, with your own body, your own limitations. I'm 100,000 years old, right? I can't do the same things now that I did back when I was 50,000 years old. I have to personalize and interpret that form and those lessons and those concepts for me now. And so I forget where we originally were, but to kind of get to your point, that illustrate sort of what the point of the guide is to help you understand, those key lessons but also help you understand how to eventually internalize and personalize those lessons. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Cool.
No, that was a good alternate path that we went around.
I am known for that. So I think there's a friend of mine who's in the chat named Ken Cohen, and Ken likes to say that conversationally, I tend to take the scenic route. So
Well, and
it makes
as you change in the kind of life status and age, and get new experiences, your interests, especially when it comes to betterment and education, evolve and change.
absolutely.
What I am interested in now is something that I was not at all interested in when I started my Masonic journey 11 years ago. Read tarot, esotericism, things like that.
Right. And oh, absolutely. I mean, for me, for some reason, I got obsessed with John Shearer and his prints. I have no idea. I mean, if you'd asked me 20 years ago, would I ever be obsessed with a little known engraver from Cincinnati, Ohio? No, but it's become this like obsession of mine to know everything I can about this dude, because every time I learn about him, I learn more weird stuff. Anyway, but that idea of fascination and that idea of the Masonic education shouldn't be one thing, shouldn't be one experience.
Yeah. And that's what I actually like about the conference is how
Yes.
it is a Midwest conference, that it has multiple jurisdictions, not one jurisdiction, because it's not provincial. We talk about provincial masonry so much that I'm a big fan. I'm a big believer of like a free market of ideas, that ideas have sex, that they reproduce, they come up with new ideas. And I know Joe wouldn't like that. And so this is a great
YouTube's
forum.
gonna ding us.
This is a great forum where you can actually share those ideas. So what do you have on the docket like for this time? Why did we call this this episode the MCME Experiment? Because I know you and I have had some back channel conversations about what the expectations are for this go around.
Well, and actually, I've had conversations with, I think, each of you in some way, shape, or form about this for, well, a couple of reasons. All right. So a little bit of history. One of the biggest critiques of the conference over the years has been that, for lack of a better word, we've lost our way. That originally the intention of the conference was for the guys at the table to get together and do that kind of idea exchange, but that the conference had gotten to the point that it wasn't really about getting people out of the bubble. It wasn't really it was just more of, let's all get here in this hotel and we'll just kind of talk a little bit, and
it turned into Freemasonry. Oh my God.
And there you go. So, and here's where I need to, COVID forced us to rethink things. And I'm going to say nice things about a guy named Scott Duball. Scott Duball and a good friend of his name is Robert Johnson. He's a short guy, about that tall. He owns most of the A&Ws and White Castles right around Skokie. I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard of him or not. I hear he's branching out into Dairy Queens, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, those two guys, the year that Illinois,
that's a really expensive franchise. I just want to tell you that.
Absolutely. And I look forward actually to seeing what you're going to do with both the White Castles and the Dairy Queens. I think a slider blizzard is going to be, we'll go with interesting. And I look forward to seeing what you do with that. Anyway, what Illinois did with the conference, because of COVID, it forced us to relook at what the conference was really about and what was important about it. We actually did it online. And a lot of those videos are still currently on our website, and they're pretty interesting. And what we realized is that it wasn't just the speakers. Like, the speakers were great. I mean, you have Chuck Dunning. I mean, if there's ever going to be like a Masonic Speaker Hall of Fame, it probably is Chuck Dunning's house. That's my guess. That's where we're going to put it. Just an add-on to his garage. But guys don't come for the speakers. What they come for is the 15 minutes in between the speakers. They come for the, you know, they come for the hospitality room just to sit and talk to guys like, you know, Chad Lasik from Ohio, to talk to guys like Brad Drew, to talk to guys like, you know, Jim Buckhorn and Chuck Dunning and, you know, Jason Laramie, and, you know, name those, to get those great people in a room and just sit and talk. That's the benefit. And so what we realized is that if the goal of the conference was to get the people at the table out of their bubble, what we also recognized was that so much phenomenal masonry happens at the quote unquote street level, right? You know, it's great that Tony Stark is up in his tower, but, you know, Daredevil and Spider-Man are doing some pretty cool stuff as well. And there's something there's something important about getting Tony Stark and Peter Parker in a room. They can learn from each other, right? There's things that they can do together. And so we broadened the scope of the conference by making sure that we invited not just the guys, quote unquote, at the table, but everybody. There's a story about that. That we invited everybody because the guys at the table, they can get in that bubble and they need to be in there. Tony Stark needs to be in a room with Peter Parker. He needs to know what Peter's doing. He needs to get that perspective of what Peter is doing, because those different perspectives, those different connections, they make Masonic education better because it thrives in connection and dies in isolation. And so that was the focus we realized that was the benefit of the conference. And so in Missouri, we tried a few things that were just different in order to really lean into and help facilitate guys making those connections. Yes, Senor Johnson.
I was just going to say that leading into this last conference you guys did, you did something that was like a blind side, actually. And I was like, oh, okay. And for anybody who's never been to these conferences in the past, state heads of the different jurisdictions that bought into the conference would stand in front of the room and they'd give their education report. So, you know, that report that like you pull out of your Grand Lodge's annual communications book that is submitted by the, you know, Grand Education Officer or whoever the equivalent is. And it's, you know, a page and a half page, whatever it is. And they read it. Any questions? Okay. And then it would just go down the line and all these guys would do this kind of thing. Well, all of a sudden we get here to the conference last year. We get the lanyard. It's got our name badge, and on the back is a QR code that takes us to a Google Drive with all those reports on it. And they just said, if you're interested in the individual reports, just scan it, read them on your own time. Let's get down to working. And I was like, oh my God.
Nice. That's amazing.
I'll be honest, that was my idea. Because of the fact that
Amazing,
I wanted
Chad.
one page, and I wanted it to be, consistent, because nobody ever got up and asked the questions that I wanted to know, you know. And so, and I think I said this last year, I learned more getting those sheets filled out than I have in the past. We're actually doing them right now. I just got a whole boatload. The conference right now is talking to different jurisdictions and getting that information. And I just got 7 or 8 from different jurisdictions that I get to look at. And I'm looking forward to putting those out to people. Because just like you said, Robert, what people did was exactly what you did and what I did, which is they read them the night before and said, oh, Indiana's doing this. And they started looking for guys who had Indiana name tags to pull them off to the side and start talking to them. Wait,
real world example of that was reading something, and then I went over to James Buckhorn and I actually asked him about something that they proposed and passed in their legislature. And I was like, holy cow, we got to try this in Illinois. And I mean, it was just really cool that kind of level of camaraderie, that level of engagement was really awesome. And I think that, like you mentioned, I do come for the speakers and I always break out my book, but I'm also that guy who they're like, usually they have to send somebody out and like shuffle me back in the room to see the next guy, right? Because we're all out in the hallway talking, and we're talking about meaningful stuff. We're not talking about the weather. We're not talking about, Joe who got elected worshipful master a third time or something like this. We're talking about awesome stuff. Joe is master third time would be pretty sweet though.
Yeah, that would be pretty sweet. So,
Well, and so
what can we expect from
okay.
the conference? Because I want to make sure that we tease this out here.
Thank you. So let's talk about sort of what we're doing differently this year, but also, again, serving that idea of breaking you out of the bubble. So one of the things that we realize is that we do have this great opportunity with people who are there to try new things. That as a conference, we can have an agenda in terms of that we have a point of view, and that we have the luxury of having really great guys there so we can try something and run squarely into a wall. So we're trying something this year that we have no idea if it's going to work, but let's see what happens.
But I love that. I love that idea. Exactly.
And you guys were really nice to me and said nice things about me about 2 weeks ago when you did the PowerPoint karaoke and talking about this idea of, this idea of a structured, unstructured activity, meaning that you have a structure, right? Like the PowerPoint, that this is the structure that we have there, but it's unstructured in that there is this unknown element that the participants can bring to it. Because the participants bring something to it, it means that they are engaged.
Right.
It means that the experience changes to become the most meaningful and beneficial to the participants. What we're doing with our conference this year is it's not the monolithic, everybody goes to this speaker and sits for an hour, then they go to this speaker for an hour, and then they go to this lunch for an hour. We're kind of doing it more like a convention as opposed to a conference. We are going to have multiple rooms doing multiple sessions, different types of sessions at the same time. Our overarching, theme for the conference, the question that we're trying to answer is we're calling it intentional masonry. So how can we, as Masonic educators, how can we enlighten and empower brethren at different levels? How can we enlighten and empower them to create a unified lodge experience that reflects what is unique and valued about masonry? And that's a whole other 15 minutes of unpacking that, but that we won't take right now. But again, it's the idea of getting a lodge and the brethren to recognize what's important to them and to create an experience that reflects what they value. What we're doing with this idea of a structured, unstructured experience is that the brethren who are there is so much that is going on that they have to choose. They have to choose an experience that is the most meaningful and most beneficial for them. So as a conference, what we are setting up is we're setting up an environment where education can happen in multiple forms.
Yeah, I'm glad you did that because yes, it is very much modern conferences that are very large have multiple tracks, and some of them might have a government track, some of them might have a DevOps track, some of them might have specific categories and try to have themed topics and presentations. But so if you wanted to just hear all about that, then you could just stay in that track, or you could bounce around, right, to whatever your tastes go.
But I think it secretly for some people it's going to create like Masonic FOMO, right?
Because I gotta make a choice.
They're like, oh my god, I want to go to this, but I want to go to that. And then
have you seen some of these sessions? I mean,
well,
I'm kind of tooting my own horn, but some of them are limiting how many people are going to allow in. Chris,
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
So Chris Busby, who that's a whole other story. I actually connected with him from the last time that I was on here. He's doing a session about New Hampshire's Guide to Ritual Excellence. And what he's doing is he's developed 2 educational programs that he's doing in New Hampshire. The first is that he does sort of the theatrical basics. And that sounds kind of scary, but what it is we assume that guys in our lodges know how to project, how to stand, what to do with their hands, how to actually emote. We can't assume that. And so Chris has developed this program to kind of say, guys, all right, guys, here's how you actually stand to be seen and speak to be heard. Let's just get those basics down. And the second one is more about interpretation. Okay, so what do we as a lodge, let's look at these moments in ritual. What's important to us? How do we craft our ritual experience to reflect what's important to us or what is important about this moment? And he's been successful doing this, and he's written it up, and he's going to bring that and tell us what that's all about. I can't wait to see that. I've seen what he's created, but I also kind of want to see what Chris is up to.
Yeah.
We have
now you also have Blue Lightning, where I guess everyone's getting 3 degrees in one day. The Masonic Lightning talks. Is that what that is?
You're killing me. Why are you doing this to me?
Not the same thing.
No,
Not the same.
no,
Oh,
no.
okay, gotcha.
Oh, and Joe
Gotcha.
just left. No, Ohio Lodge of Research. This is, again, we've had some really great partners with this, and one is Ohio's Royal Schofield Society, and the other is our Ohio Lodge of Research, and they've kind of bought into this as well. That what they are doing is they are having a room that's just them, and they're going to be available all day for brethren to, if you ever want to talk to the Lodge of Research, the guys who know a lot about history and about research, they're going to be there all day. And they want you to bring a paper you're working on, a question that, you want answered, something you might want to talk to,
I want to use an expletive. Like, I expletive love this idea, right? Y'all ever gone to
Why, Robert?
Okay, so I went to the San Diego Comic-Con for years. I think the last year I went was 2009 because it just got crazy. But if anybody's ever been to that, there is something we kind of used to call Artist Row. And it was all of these artists selling their prints and drawing and just like giving away their soul on paper for dollars, right? Because these are starving artists, amazing people who are going to grow up to be like just the next killer comic artist or whatever. And then there would be somebody from DC, somebody from Marvel, somebody from Independent or Image or whatever the case is. And what they're doing is portfolio reviews. And it was like, they're like, this is really great. You got to work on these hands a little bit. I remember watching, it was me and Joe, and we were up way too late watching something about how Seth MacFarlane kind of developed this idea about Spawn moving outside of the comic box that he's in, right? Like just like interesting motion concepts that they would review and give you these helpful hints. And that's what I love about this idea about bringing somebody else a paper. You're putting your ego on the line, but it's not unlike, I mean, this is more friendly than anything you could have thought about, in high school. It's not going to be like, your high school teacher telling you, this is terrible, buddy. These are brothers who are going to go, hey, you could stand to do this. Maybe look at the Chicago outline guide, whatever the case is. But I really love this idea of a review with people who are experts in the field.
It's just the nerding out room, and that's great because you can.
Then you're going to love this, Robert. So the lightning talks, we basically are going to allow people to sign up for 15-minute slots. They got a microphone, they got a projector, and they got an audience of guys from the OLR. So get up, whatever you got. Yeah. If it's an idea, wonderful. If it's a half-formed idea, great. If it's a pecha-kucha, awesome. If it's just whatever you got that you think, let's see what happens in front of an audience. Fine, get it up there.
I love what happens when I had ChatGPT write my paper for me.
But again, it's a way for you to, I think, going back to the comic things, there was somebody, it was either J. Scott Campbell, it was one of those image artists who was actually found in a way by one of those portfolio reviews at a conference. Like they saw him, they're like, this is amazing. You need to give, that's kind of one of the reasons why we're doing this. One, to do kind of a Masonic open mic night, but also who knows what voices are out there that we have no idea about? Who knows what great take is out there? Right. What great thoughts are out there? Fine. Let's give them a shot.
Yeah.
Now, let's be honest. We're going to get something real. We're going to get like Jay Clark up there, who's going to talk about something, weird and wonderful, because it's Jay Clark and he's weird and wonderful. Awesome. But we might get, who knows what we're going to get. And again, this could also
And
fail
that's the beauty
miserably,
of it.
which
Well,
is,
and fail is such a loaded term, right? Because in my industry, like failure equals learning, right? But we have to get past the stigma of trying something new and then it falling on its face and then having negative repercussions from it. Like what you've created here is a safe space of Masonic education nerds to try something, experiment, remix, like work together, collaborate, share, ideate. Like this is really a different environment than your traditional room full of past masters telling you your rituals off.
Well,
Joe?
and that's what I was gonna throw in there. Sorry to cut you off, Chad. The premise about failing, I just don't think it's realistic. Not because you're phenomenal and awesome, because you are, but because you've got people that already have buy-in that are present, right? It's not your typical lodge experience where you have 3 people there that are actually interested in the crap you're talking about, and the other 27 just want to go home, right? Or they're sleeping or what have you. So your audience is there already, right? And
and that's the benefit of the conference is we have the guys there who already kind of have the buy-in. Like if I used to joke with my theater students, like that if I told them to run face first into a wall, they would do it because they trusted me. Like that, well, Kopenski says we're going to do this and it's part of the experience. Sure. Guys, please don't run face first into the wall. But, we have the guys there. We have this opportunity. Why not seize on it? Let's see what happens. And again, failure equals learning. My background, theater. I mean, in improv, listen, you got to sometimes just bite hard on what is going to might be a bad choice or a bad decision, but you got to play it out because the next time you go through it, you realize, oh, it's easier now this time because look at all you learned from watching that blow up this time. The first time, it's easier the second time.
Something. Go ahead, Chad. I don't want to interrupt your flow. Oh, so I'll just say that the first time I went to this, it was because I was on the education committee of the state of Illinois, and our committee was under Scott, and Scott knew about this Midwest conference that was happening, and I'm like, okay. So after a stated meeting of Space Novum, it was a Friday night. We drove like 9 hours right after the meeting, went to bed at like 5 a.m., got up at 9 or something, and then headed downstairs to the convention. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. But it was like Chad Lasik, me, Spencer, and Scott, and 12 other people.
Right.
And I was like, this is the Midwest? What's going on here, right? And then so after that, what was crazy was you all got installed as your new VPs and in presidents and things. And this thing just started gaining traction. And I think one of the biggest and most cool things ever was seeing like, I witnessed the end, what would have been the end of MCME in like 2018. You guys, through campaigns in not selling the conference, letting people know that this thing even existed, resulted in an explosion for the COVID year that we had. And then like when it was just over the border here in Missouri, it was like the hospitality room was shoulder to shoulder. I mean, it was just crazy. It was unbelievable in the amount of people who just poured in. And we saw guys from all over the place who have been emailing me. They've emailed Chad or Spencer, and they're like, hey, you coming again this year? These people are excited to come back, and this thing is growing. And I've said it a few times that I honestly wonder, because of the way you could explain this, but the Midwest Conference really was like a Grand Lodge is a member. If they pay in, they're a member of the conference. The way you all changed the bylaws and you opened it up allowed for organizations and individuals to become members and have a voice in the direction of the conference. And so, like NPR goes, hey, we have to let you know that we're sponsored by so-and-so when they report on something. I have to say, like, I did buy an organizational membership. I have 3 votes, which is really cool. But would we do that kind of thing if we really didn't believe in it? And I have to say that I think this Midwest conference is going to just die. It's just going to become the Masonic Conference of Education at some point.
From your
It's the
lips to
only one
God's
left.
ears.
It's the only one left. Kevin Holman in Virginia asked, he said, what happened to the like the East Coast version? We had the Rocky Mountain Conference, which was kind of split.
Right.
They're just all gone. This is
Jason,
the only one left.
What happened? Aren't you hosting that one next year?
Yeah, maybe.
And it's out.
But
It's called
consequently,
Esotericon in April.
right? But I was going to say, but consequently, what we have is we do have the explosion of things like the different cons, esotericon, camp masonry.
Yeah.
Camp masonry.
God rest its soul, right?
I miss camp masonry.
Jason,
right.
Yeah.
Jason Shaney, I love you. And, I've
Bring
got a
it back.
compound with like a couple barns on it. Camp
All right.
masonry at the
We're get-
compound.
We're getting
Let's do
close
it.
to time. So,
Sorry.
Chad, how can we find and, more importantly, register for the Midwest Conference on Masonic Education?
Go to the website.
What's the website?
MCME1949.org. So again, that's MCME, like Midwest Conference of Masonic Education, 1949.org. What you'll see there is you'll see information about the conference, and you'll see a button that says, conference details and registration. There are different levels that you can register at because we have basically there's a whole boatload of things that are happening during that weekend. It's the 28th, 29th, and sort of the 30th of April. Basically, it's the night of the 28th. It's almost all the work is happening on the 29th, and the 30th is sort of a wrap-up day. But you can go there, register for the conference. You can also go and get your hotel rooms. But it's going to be at the Canton Masonic Temple in Canton, Ohio, which is a huge, gorgeous, phenomenal building with like 7 or 8 different lodge rooms, boatload of history. I'll be there this weekend, kind of doing another scoping out about it. But go to the website, take a look at the different events that we have, different speakers that we have. We have some phenomenal speakers and a phenomenal sort of day that's set up for you. And register and please join us.
That'll be fun. And what's the date of that again?
It is April 28th, 29th, and 30th. So in about a month or so. Which is now you know why I don't sleep. So
You're a busy man, but your dedication and zeal to the craft is super awesome. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. So, and it's because of that conference, truthfully, that I've gotten to know you all. It's got through that conference that I've gotten to, Robert tells the story, that we were trying to kill for time in Iowa. And I walked up to, I think we were waiting on Sean Iyer to speak or someone to speak or Dan Gardner. And went up to Ed Rund. I'm like, listen, I know we got to kill for time. I got this thing on my computer that I've been doing called Pecha Kucha. It goes 15 minutes. Why don't you just let me do it? And like, we'll just kind of see what happens and talk about it. And I did it. And that's really, that kind of broke the ice that I got to meet and talk to Robert and Chad Lasik and Spencer and Scott Duvall. And through them, I got to meet you guys. So
that's great. Awesome.
But so my last commercial pitch, please check out the website. Please come to the conference. There is an opportunity to attend online. You're just not going to be able to get all the really cool stuff if you're sitting at home. So
it looks like you guys have
just posted thanks, Mike, for posting the Facebook page.
Yeah, Facebook/MCME 1949 looks like. Yep.
Oh, Busby, he thinks he'll be there. All right, Busby.
No pressure. You're on the agenda.
He better. I got a great room for him.
After that setup. All right, gents. Time for the final question of the day. We'll start wrapping up. We'll save our special guest for last, starting with Joe Martinez because he gets no love going after Robert. Question of the day is: what are you looking forward to the most? What well wishes do you have for Brother Chad and the whole MCME planners for this year's conference? Joe, go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, Chad already knows I'm dying to go. I wish I could go. I do have a commitment that weekend, but we'll definitely put you on the calendar for 2024. So hook me up and give me the deets. But yeah, no, I think the whole experiment that he discussed, I think it's awesome. I think some of the differentiators that he has, him and his whole team, have when it comes to putting on this conference, I think is amazing. I think the fact that you have buy-in from multiple jurisdictions is just phenomenal, and it's not something that's done except in, Grand Lodge halls and on paper, and it's all glad handing and nothing of substance. So this sounds substantive and it sounds phenomenal, and I'm bummed I can't be there. So kudos, man.
All right, thank you. Let's head over to Jason Richards. What are you looking forward to for them, or what well wishes do you have?
So Chad, I'm so excited about what you're doing and the balance that you've struck between not just having some notable speakers, but really emphasizing getting local lodge members and ground floor grassroots lodge members to go out of their comfort zone and encouraging them to face the discomfort of giving their own Masonic research in public. I think especially with those lightning talks like that to me is the thing that I'm most excited for. I'll most likely not be able to make it up. However, I will do my very best to stream it the day of, because
You better send us links. Yeah.
I just want to watch and just see all of the goodness that that the conference attendees come up with. I think it's going to be amazing.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Robert, well wishes and hopes for the best.
Well wishes, of course. Like I said, I am so excited for this. Watching watching something evolve and really come back, like, I don't know, the stupid idea of like the Phoenix or something, right? Coming back and just unfolding its wings and spreading its wings and flying away is, I think this is like that point for MCME. I mean, it was like the ashes were happening when the first time I went, and then it just has increased in power and prowess over the last couple of years. And it used to be when you mentioned MCME or Midwest Conference, people would be like, what? And now they know. And this is really awesome. As far as the conference goes, I'm really looking forward to it. Of course, the things that I'm having to kind of juggle in my head is, do I go to something like the New Hampshire Guide to Ritual Excellence, which has this limit of 15? I do public speaking, but I'm not so, have so much bravado thinking I've got it all. I can learn, and I would want to. But then again, I also have this inkling in my head. I have this like negative thoughts about quote unquote small town masonry, and how for some reason I always think, oh, they must be doing it wrong or whatever. And over the last few years, I've really caught on to this kind of romanticized idea of the small town lodge doing the community things, bringing brothers into the fold, and kind of falling in love with it. And so this idea of talking or taking small town values statewide is really interesting to me. And of course, the Chamber of Reflection talk. And I don't know, man, a couple of them repeat, so maybe I'll have the ability to do that. But I'm just really looking forward to watching people do their thing and shine, and being proud of the organization and the people that it's bringing together. So Chad, you know, I've been in your corner since you gave your Pechakucha and you walked over to my table and you were like nervous, and I remember your shirt was a little untucked, and you sat down with Scott and I, and we just talked the afternoon away. So you got a number one fan, always going to be in your corner unless you do something terrible.
Don't screw it up.
Don't mess it up, buddy. I
No
love
pressure.
you, man. I love you, and I love everything you're doing. So
Come on.
just move closer. Did I ever tell you guys that Chad one night didn't tell anybody, and we opened up Lodge, and I happened to look across from the secretary's desk, and there he was sitting in the northwest corner of the Lodge, and he got introduced, and I was like, I was so excited that he came out. So
Love it.
anyway,
There's
it's
the
gonna
best.
be great. Really looking forward. I'm also looking forward to the drive because I'm driving with Chad and Spencer and Ray Babinski all in one car with me. It's going to be amazing.
Party time. All right. Thank you, Robert. All right, Chad, before I close, any final thoughts, questions, comments?
A boatload of them. Thank you all for the nice words. Really, I mean, I kind of jokingly said that I'm a friend of the show, but I'm also a huge fan of you all, and the fact that my conversations with you, my friendship with you, and the connections I've had with you have forced me to rethink Masonic education, to rethink this conference. There's actually a fair amount from you all that's filtered through me to into this conference. I'm a big believer in Masonic education. I'm a big believer in meaningful connections. I think that's what Masonry is all about. And this is an opportunity that we have to explore those meaningful connections, to move Masonic education forward, and to really sort of, improve ourselves, improve the fraternity. So thank you all for letting me be on here, and thank you all for the kind words and support. And for the audience, come join us. It's going to be an amazing time. You can just see me sit there and, sweat and vibrate and, hopefully not vomit on Ken Cohen. So
vibrate. What the hell is going on?
Well, my ADHD brain will just take over and I'll just be, vibrating over in the corner,
we'll talk about
your
that
nerves
in
and,
the green room, sir.
That's
vibrating.
there's medication for that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, brother Chad. It's super awesome as always to have you on here. I always learn something new every time you're on. So thank you for sharing that and sharing the intent, the plan, the well wishes. Like this is going to be a great conference. You and I have talked about this, and so I'm a big fan of the unconference movement, right? Because we've all grown up with boring lectures, and I don't want Masonic education to stay that way. Like, let's take some of the best of this unconference movement. So if you Google unconference, you'll see things like Masonic, or you'll see things like Pechakucha, like PowerPoint karaoke, like lightning talks, like fishbowl talks. These are things that I love to see brought into this education realm. And so someone's got to be first. And that's what I love about what brother Chad and the whole team has put together, is that they're going to try some things. And, you try to put the right people in the right place and with the right environment, the right tools, and see what magic happens. And I love that they're willing to take that risk, that it is, it's a calculated risk. And it's something that I think will improve that conversation around Masonic education, right? So that's where this pivot needs to happen. We need to make it dynamic. We need to make it interactive. We need to make it much more powerful than it was in the previous years, if for no other reason than, the disruption of the digital age, the information age, COVID, etc. So I think, again, I'm wishing the best for brother Chad and the team, and just really, I think, so far, all the dominoes are in place. I think it's just a matter of letting them fall where they lay. So with that, I want to thank you all very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.